Yo, what up guys, Travic here, and today I want to talk Path of Exile 2. At the time of recording, we are less than 2 weeks away from Path of Exile 2, and if you're watching this in the future, we're probably even closer. Path of Exile 2 just got announced the other day, and they gave us an absolute ton of information, and I watched the whole 3-hour presentation with the Q&A, and today I want to talk about some of the things that I learned, some of the things I'm excited about, and just pretty much what's going on. Well, let's start with the absolute basics. To obtain access to Path of Exile 2, or to even consider playing it before it is out of early access, you need to do one of two things. And that is you either need to buy access to Path of Exile 2 or have spent a ton of money. And by a ton, I mean a little bit of money on Path of Exile over the last couple of years. And to find out that information, we're going to go over to the pathofexile.com website, click on Get Access to Path of Exile 2, and it'll give you a lot of the information about the supporter packs that you can buy. But if you don't want to buy a supporter pack and you want to check yourself if you can or cannot play Path of Exile 2, the frequently asked questions answers a lot of information for you. Essentially, if you have spent a total of $480 in the lifetime of Path of Exile, you should be able to get a code for early access. Now, you can indeed check if you have access to early access by going into your account page, and then your account page will let you know that if you've managed to spend enough money or that you can indeed have access. Now, once your account page loads up, you can come down over here. There is a section that says Path of Exile 2 Early Access, and you can check if you have access. At the time of recording, codes have not gone out yet, so I have not been able to get a code yet, but you can just kind of go over here if you haven't think that you've spent the money and just buy yourself access to Path of Exile 2 with the early access supporter pack. Other things to note, the other Path of Exile supporter packs, all the other tiers of them will also grant you access to Path of Exile 2's early access, and you'll get extra codes depending on the depth or level of the supporter pack that you buy. So if you buy and you are one of those people that gets that big crazy supporter pack, you will get extra keys to give to your friends, and you can indeed give them away. Now that you have access to Path of Exile and, Path of Exile 2, you're wondering, okay, how does it work? What's going on? Are there a ton of classes? Can I play? Is there an end game? Well, let's start with just overall that. Early access is going to allow you to level your character all the way to 100, just like Path of Exile 1. The devs have told us that there is leagues inside of early access. There'll be an early access league, and it'll have its own little standard form of a league. And every time there's an update and a wipe, your character will go to early access standard, and you will be able to start fresh with the economy and the community and play the new updates to early access while keeping your character just as your character is. They mentioned in the Q&A that your character will live in an early access league until the game comes out, and then it will still live in an early access league, and you will just have this little token of memorabilia of a character that you will be able to just play. And some things might not work, some things will break as things change, but you will have access to an early access character if you start in early access. Early access is only going to be 3 acts when it comes out. Unfortunately, we do not have acts 4, 5, and 6, and they will be coming out in the future. We will be able to play through Act 1, 2, and 3. That'll bring us to about level 45. And then we will do Act 1, 2, and 3 again, very similar to Diablo 2 and very similar to how Path of Exile was before the serious expansion. So you'll play the first 3 acts, you'll get to about level 45, you'll play the first 3 acts again, it'll be a lot quicker, you'll know what to do, where to go, how to progress. You'll get to about level 65, and then we'll start the whole endgame grind. Now, when early access is over and the game comes out, we'll get access to Acts 4, 5, and 6. Honestly, not too bad. I've played a lot of Diablo 2 in the past. I've played a lot of Path of Exile when it first came out, and the whole idea of playing, X amount of acts and then redoing them is pretty much a staple to ARPGs. You do, your normal Nightmare Hell, or in our case, normal, cruel, and I forget what the third one is for Path of Exile. But all in all, I am totally fine with it. Now, when they did the live stream interview and they talked about how long it would take, they were saying that new players who have never played an ARPG before, have never gone through the campaign, don't really know what to expect, are exploring every nook and cranny, are looking for all the lore, it'll take a good handful of time to get to endgame. I want to say Mark and Jonathan said it's about 20 hours, maybe a little bit more, and I know that sounds a little bit crazy as Path of Exile players are very used to the zoom mentality, but Mark had said in a I think it was PC Gamer interview, that once you know what you're doing and once you go through everything and once you're able to no, okay, I need this quest, I need this boss, I need this boss, I need this boss, you will be able to blast through the campaign 5, maybe 6 hours, very similar to how Path of Exile is right now. And new characters won't take you that daunting 20, 30, 40 hours. Now, of course, that's going to take time, that's going to take practice, that's going to take learning the, learning the story, learning all the nooks and crannies, maybe like planning out different routes. But the beauty of the early access is being able to play the story for the first time and really see it for the story and what it shines out to be. Now, I was told in the early access, by the devs, there's like 50, I think it's like 50 or 60 unique bosses. Every area will have its own unique boss with its own unique skill set and movement set, and we will be able to just like pretty much play through everything. On top of that too, Path of Exile has never had cinematics, and just putting on the cinematic and letting it play in the background, this is wonderful. Like, as somebody who's come from playing Diablo and somebody who loves Blizzard level cinematics, seeing this and seeing them put so much into cinematics makes me want to play the story, makes me want to look through all the different things, makes me not want to rush everything, makes me want to like really enjoy early access for what early access is. Now, if you haven't listened to this or watched this cinematics, I'll include a link to what I'm looking at down below, and I really encourage you guys to watch it because it really sets up the story nicely. It gives you like this want and need to find out, like, what are these demons, what are we hunting, what is going on, why is this sorceress like just setting this forest on fire, why is the ranger firing arrows? And it really sets the pacing for the story really, really, really well. Now, overall, when we do get to play, we are going to have access to 6 classes. We will not have access to all the classes, unfortunately, in early access, but that's fine because there's a monk class and we're only going to play monk, and we're just all going to log in monk together because monk is obviously going to be the #1 tier best class period ever, and there's nothing else to even play. All right, so if you're not starting monk, your other options are you do have ranger, witch, sorceress, mercenary, and warrior. But me personally, I think I will be absolutely positively starting monk. Now, the Path of Exile 2 Endgame content reveal video has a beautiful demonstration of all the classes. It will walk you through what they all do and give you a nice, real good glimpse of everything that you should be expecting out of all the classes coming forward. So we're going to have this fantastic campaign to go through. We're going to have 6 awesome classes to pick. The campaign is going to take us a little bit of time. And one of the cool things about the campaign outside of all the bosses is a lot of the areas in the campaign will have an overlay on the map telling us where we need to go. One of the things in Path of Exile 1 currently is it really doesn't give us direction. If we open up Path of Exile 1 and we just take a look at like the current in-game world map and we bring it up, it kind of just tells us to like go in a straight line. It doesn't really tell us where anything is. We have to click on these little icons and it just kind of highlights for us to just kind of go there and do things, but it never really says like why we should be going there or what we should be aiming for. But in Path of Exile 2, it's going to tell us that in the story, if I go here and I kill this boss, I will get permanent boosts to my character, whether it be more spirit to summon, and to summon your summons, more spirit for your auras, whether it be more resistances, more skill points, more passive skill points, and just essentially all kinds of different things. Now, one of the things too is Path of Exile 2 is going to have this massive giant skill tree. I know it is very overwhelming. I know it is very taunting. And I know it's one of the things that really drives a lot of players away from Path of Exile. But I will say this, while in PoE 1, it does have the same gigantic skill tree, it has been a lot easier to navigate as the years have gone on. I know that people are going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh dear God, no thanks. But in Path of Exile now, we have the ability to respec our tree a lot easier. The addition of gold in Path of Exile has made things a little bit easier, and in Path of Exile 2 they've assured us that a lot of the nodes that we take in our starting areas will make sense towards the class that we're picking. And with anything in Path of Exile, you will have the freedom to pick and choose and navigate your tree any way you want. Now, you will probably mess up on your first and second, third character. You will mess up on your fourth, fifth, and sixth character. You probably will look up somebody's guide on how to do things. And it is okay to mess up. And yeah, well, it might be a little bit punishing, but you could see you can easily respec your points with gold. Gold will drop from all the different monsters. Everything you do will give you gold. And in testing in the current Path of Exile world, respecing in itself is very simple and straightforward. It is not very difficult. It is not very daunting. And, the idea of needing a bunch of regret orbs to respec is not really so much of a thing anymore. If you're low level and you try something and it doesn't work, then you just respec your tree and it's pretty good. The one thing they've reassured us a lot is, and you can see here, is if I take a notable, it's just going to tell us what it does. It's going to be very straightforward. It's going to give us a good description of it. And if it sounds like it's supposed to work with your skill, according to the devs, it should absolutely positively work with your skill. And it should be able to give us a little bit more freedom as newer players to really kind of explore and look around and piece together what we want. I know a lot of players that I talk to are like freaking out and they're like, oh my God, dude, there's no POB, and oh my God, there's no build guides, and there's no this, and how are we supposed to learn? And just try it. Just play it. Just mess up. We're all going to be in the same boat. We're all going to be learning together. One of the cool things too, as you've seen, you will need attributes. And now with the way that Path of Exile 2 has set up its Atlas tree, we don't need to worry about so much pathing anymore to get like, oh my God, I need int and dex. We can now just put what we want on the passive highway. And I can choose if I need more int, I need more dex, and we can respec these freely without having to do our whole tree, which is a huge, huge, huge upside. So that's going to be like really cool. Now, as we progress and level our characters and we start getting points and stuff and we start doing things, we're going to need to ascend our character. Each one of the characters will have 2 different ascendancies on the start of Path of Exile 2's early access, and each one of them will be able to be unlocked and you'll be able to put points in them just like you normally would. So while you're progressing through the story, you will have to ascend your character. Ascending your character, if you've never heard of that before, essentially just makes it so that your character goes from the base class to a higher tier. So like, for example, I think the witch can become I think this one is called a chronomancer. The monk has all different ones. The sorceress has all different ones. The witch has different ones. And these different ascendancies will allow you to upgrade your class and become insanely more powerful. In Path of Exile 1, we currently have to do something called the Lab of Ascension, and the lab we go through, it's this huge pain in the butt, and we're trying to figure it out, and we don't know what to do, and there's all rooms and traps, and it's a huge nightmare. And essentially not a lot of people really like labs, and labs is just, labs ain't it, man. Just labs ain't it. But in Path of Exile 2 now, we're going to have access to essentially Ultimatum and Sanctum. Now, I don't know about you, but ascending through either Ultimatum or Sanctum sounds kind of awesome, and it sounds really good, to at least to me. If you've never played Path of Exile before, to level your character and ascend, we'll have, like I said, Sanctum and Ultimatum, and Sanctum is going to be this really cool in-game little dungeon crawler. You're gonna have to go through different rooms. You're gonna have to figure out different like little things. There's gonna be a trap room, a kill all the monsters room, a survive room, a find the exit room, a little boss room, and you'll go through this like ARPG dungeon or dungeon crawler or roguelike where you get like buffs and passives and debuffs, and you just, once you kill the boss at the end, you will ascend. And on the other side of the coin, there's Ultimatum, and Ultimatum is going to be this challenge wave where you have to like protect the totem, kill all the mobs, survive, with different little things trying to kill you along the way, and it's just going to be a giant kill arena. So me personally, I love Sanctum. Like, Sanctum is all in for me, and I will be taking the Sanctum route. I will also be testing out the Ultimatum route, and when we come closer towards the end of early access, or at the end of early access, we'll be getting a third way to ascend. And in the Q&A, they really hinted at it was Trials of the Ancestors. And if you've never played Path of Exile, Trial of the Ancestors was an auto battler, like an in-game Path of Exile auto battler that might actually just be coming out for Path of Exile 2, which would be really cool to see PoE 2 return with Trials of the Ancestors. Outside of that, you start playing, you start going, you're cruising, you're trying to figure out what's next, where to go, how you're gonna do things. You want to get to Endgame, what's in Endgame, what should we expect from Endgame? And well, I have another screenshot here, and Endgame is going to have 7 different systems for us to play with. So we get to 65, we've ascended our character, we've gone through the story, and we say, now what? Well, as soon as we get to Endgame, we're going to have Ritual, Breach, Delirium, Expedition, the Trial of Sechems, the Trial of Chaos Gods, and the Burning Monolith. Now, there's going to be a lot, an absolute metric ton to Endgame, and this is only the beginning. Because we only have access to Acts 1, 2, and 3, we're not really going to see a lot of the Endgame mechanics, and a lot of them aren't really there yet. Also, a lot of the mechanics are combined, and maybe some just aren't coming back. And for me, one of the examples that I'll bring up that a lot of people talk about is Blight. Blight oils now seem to be in Delirium. We don't seem to have access to Blight anymore. So I don't know if Blight's coming back, or if Blight's in Acts 4, 5, and 6, or if Blight is a future project, but a lot of the systems that we have for Path of Exile now aren't in early access, but we have 7 of them that we can mess around with. In this early access video, talking about the end game and going over the end game, you'll see the map in itself for the Atlas is massive. You will have this unending, infinite map that you will just go through and explore and pick your different nodes. And the days of running the same map 100 times over and over and over are a thing of the past. You will now explore an area. You'll get to the Atlas, you'll choose a zone, you'll go into the zone, and you'll start just exploring. Now, the real upside and downside to this is you have an infinitely never-ending area that you get to explore, that you get to update and upgrade via waystones that you see him doing right now. And the downside is you only get one shot per zone. So essentially, if you've ever played Last Epoch, I get to go into a map zone. I get to then click on what I want to farm. I go into my little area. I try to farm it. I can portal in and out to bring my loot back and forth. But if my character does die, I do lose access to that area. And I do have to just kind of go around that path because that way is no longer available to me anymore. And I have to just explore different areas. Currently in Path of Exile, when we go mapping and when we do things, we pick a map, we put it in, we zone in, we have 6 portals, we're 6 portal warriors. At the end, there's a map boss, we get our loot, we go out, we put the same map back in, and then we run Strand 400 times in a day. We kill 8,000 essence mobs, we don't do anything else with our lives. But now in Path of Exile 2, we will run a wide variety of maps. We'll be able to pick and choose what we want to put on our maps, and we'll have access to all these different mechanics, and we won't get punished for not taking a mechanic and not leveling up a mechanic. One of the coolest things in Path of Exile 2 is, just like in PoE 1, we're going to have access to a skill tree for Path of Exile 2's mechanics, and we will be able to level all of them at the same time. We will be able to put in points into literally everything all at the same time, and you won't feel bad anymore for running into a league mechanic. Originally in Path of Exile 1, if I run into a league mechanic, like I'm doing my map, I'm farming my essences, and I see expedition, I feel bad, I don't have points in expedition, I'm not going to waste my time, I'm not going to do expedition, it's going to feel bad. But in Path of Exile 2, you will have the ability to put points into breach, ritual, delirium, expedition without getting punished. And if you're doing an area and you see expedition and it randomly pops up, you're like, man, I have 6 points in that. I'm just going to run this expedition. I'm going to get some extra loot. The more you engage in the encounters and the more that you progress through the story, the more points you're going to get for each type of mechanic. And they've assured us the more that we push into these mechanics, the more we'll see. You see, even right now, there is essences. We will still have essences. But, alongside these 7 systems, there's going to be so much more. Mark and Jonathan did a really great job of not really giving us everything, and they're making us explore. And Mark, please, I need to know. John, please, just give me a little bit more, man. Just a teeny tiny bit more. I'm really excited. I was trying to record this video, and every time I rewatch this or think about this or look at my notes, I can't wait to play this, man. I can't wait to play this. Path of Exile 2 is going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. It is going to have a lot of mechanics. It's going to have a lot of questions. It's going to have a lot of concerns. It's going to be a different game, and I really encourage you guys to try it and play it. The best part is if mapping is going to be your thing and doing mechanics is going to be your thing, you will have an absolute blast. I believe sextants are back. They call them light stones or watchtowers or something else now. That's going to be really interesting. And I will say the one thing is, mapping might be overwhelming at first, and give it some time. Just like the skill tree, once we get into it, once we start playing it, it will make more sense. It will feel smooth. You will be able to go and do things. Now in Path of Exile 1, like I had mentioned earlier, we go into a map, we have 6 portals, we get to the end of the map boss or map zone, there's a map boss, we kill the map boss, we get our loot and leave. In Path of Exile 2, it's a little bit different. We're going to go into our zone, like I had mentioned. If we die, we go around and we do it again. But one of the cool things is about this Atlas is we get to literally explore the Atlas, and we can choose if we want to do a zone with a map boss. Now, there are going to be skill trees for that map boss. You can choose to do them, and you see right here, as we progress through the Atlas and start doing more things, we'll get access to more of those points. And the beauty of the Atlas is I can choose to hunt bosses. I can choose to hunt certain mechanics. I can choose to explore the land for different things. And the Atlas in itself will have icons and show you everywhere that you need to go. So if you're not really a bossing build and you're more of a mapping build, just ignore the zones with bosses. If you're more of a bossing build, go towards the zone with bosses. If you're looking for special events, go towards the special events. And we can see even right here, there's icons showing us all kinds of different events in different zones. We see a breach one here, a ritual one there. I don't know what that symbol is yet. We see a delirium one here, an expedition one here. We have a realm gate that lets us portal around. We have a vault with ancient treasures. We have Untainted Paradise, and you can really spend a lot of time hunting down these different mechanics. And you can really look and search and figure it out. And you'll run into things like the Nameless Seer. And there's so much in this atlas that I feel like if I sat here and talked solely about the atlas, we'd be here for another hour. Like seriously, like an absolute another hour. Now with that, if you want, and you know, if you're just kind of like into it and just leveling this atlas isn't really your thing, you know, like I said, you have access to all the different mechanics that you can do. And then there's even things like pinnacle bosses. One of the big things about Path of Exile 1 that people love to do is they love to fight pinnacle bosses. They love to go in and they love to do these different hard bosses. They love to farm the fragments. They want to do their uber bosses. And in Path of Exile 2, nothing different is going to occur. We are going to have the ability to farm bosses just like in PoE 1. And the big difference between Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1 is instead of just loading in and going regular boss, uber boss, bosses in Path of Exile 2 are going to have tiers. So you're going to go tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, or it's 1 to 4. I forget if there's a 0. And the more you scale up the pinnacle fight, the more rewards that you're going to get. And these pinnacle bosses are going to have their own sets of loot with them. And they're pretty much going to be like this thing that we're going to farm. You see, you even have trees associated towards those pinnacle bosses, and you'll be able to just like explore those trees and you'll be able to look into them. And the more you do the bosses, the more points that you'll get, and you'll really be able to fine tune your character to be an absolute bossing machine. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm really excited to hop into the Atlas. I do plan on exploring the campaign. I do plan on exploring, you know, just December 6th honestly can't come soon enough. I think my plans overall for December 6th is I'm going to be logging in Monk as my first character. You've seen the Monk gameplay a lot in this trailer. They spent a lot of time showing the Monk. Even right now in this breach, they're showing the Monk, and Monk just resonates with me as some character that I really want to play. Outside of the Monk, the Mercenary looks really good. All of the classes look absolutely fantastic, and there's a lot I really want to play. Now, there are going to be concerns from players. You know, they're worried about WASD movement. They're worried about point to click. They're worried about crafting. And if you haven't had the opportunity to watch the whole 3-hour Q&A, it was really good and answered a lot of questions. One of the big things too is players are really worried about WASD movement. And we found out that we will be able to switch back and forth between the two movements very easily. That shouldn't be a concern at all. There will be no scouring orbs. You know, we'll be able to craft, and we have got to pick up bases. Ground loot in itself is supposed to be more impactful, and overall, it is going to be a completely different experience than Path of Exile 1 gives us. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited. And according to what they were saying, we should have both Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 really work well together. We should have a lot of the League of Path of Exile 2 to be able to play, and then we should be able to go over to Path of Exile 1 and we should be able to play that. So we'll be able to jump back and forth between the two games quite nicely. I know, me personally, I'm really excited. I've probably said it 100 times in this video that I'm really excited. I honestly can't wait for this to come out. I can't wait to dive into all the Endgame and explore the Atlas and see what it has to offer. I can't wait to just start the game from day one. I remember starting Path of Exile 1 forever ago. My account is forever old, and I remember logging in and dox farming and watching the game grow and trying different leagues before I was a streamer and exploring PoE. And you go from dox farming to dominus farming to getting to your first maps to freaking out and exalting your first map, and you don't know what an exalt does, and you're trying to figure out trading and everything's a mess. And then league after league comes out and you're hunting beasts and stuff like that, and it was a really good time. Now, I know there's a lot of concern with things like, you know, and I'll use beasts as the example because I just brought it up. You know, right now, we don't know if beasts are in Path of Exile 2. We don't know if Blight is in Path of Exile 2. We don't know what happened to Harvest. We don't know what happened to Anarchy. We don't know what happened to a lot of different things. You know, are the Tormented Spirits still around? From my understanding and what I've gathered from the Q&A, a lot of league mechanics are coming back, and not everything is in early access, and they want to make things a little bit more impactful than what they are right now. So a really good example I saw was somebody was talking about, they said instead of hunting just like a normal spider for Ironheart, they'd rather have it be a really cool encounter. And you know what, if it takes some time for them to rework some of the mechanics and it takes some time for Blight to come back or for Beast to come back, I'm okay with that. Path of Exile 2, remember, is its own game. with its own features and its own leagues and its own mechanics. We don't need everything from Path of Exile 1. We don't need to be doing the same harvest strategy that we're doing right now in PoE 1. It can live in Path of Exile 1. That is fine. I just want to play the game, and I want to explore it for what it is, and I want to see the new vision, and I want to see the new game, and I really want to explore. And honestly, this I can sit here and rewatch this over and over and over until December 6th, and I get to play, because it just looks good. It looks refreshing. It looks nice, and it looks like it's just going to be a ton of fun. I know I'm really excited. I can't wait. Now, I know there's so much more information to go over, and there's going to be so much more information coming out. And, over the next couple of days, we'll be getting more and more tidbits of Path of Exile 2, and we'll be able to make more information, and I'll get it out to you guys as I hear about it and as I read about it, as I learn and understand it. But right now, the game plan is, December 6th, we're going to be logging on Twitch and YouTube. We're going to be live streaming the event. We're going to be loading in Monk, and we're just going to explore it. And, I'd love to have you guys there with me. I'd love to hear about your, what you're planning on playing. And if you have any comments about like Path of Exile 2, or you want to share with me what you're planning on playing, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys on what your plans is for December 6th. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Are you excited? Are you not excited? I mean, I'd like to hear just from you guys, just what overall is going on. But for now, I'm gonna get this video out to you guys, and I'm gonna just keep staring at my clock and wait for the calendar and check off day after check off day and just count down the days until Path of Exile 2. For now, friends, I hope you're as excited as I am, and I'll see you all in the next one.